Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on this panel presented by Folk Alliance International for Folk Unlocked. My name is Susie Genn, and I'm on the board of directors here at Folk Alliance International, and I'm a booking agent at Ground Control Touring. Before we get started, let's recognize the privilege of gathering online today. Since our activities are happening virtually, let's take a moment to acknowledge the legacy of colonization and technology we use every day. We use devices and internet not readily available in all communities, and we use software and systems that are not accessible to all. We invite you to join in acknowledging our shared responsibility to use this privilege well, and for each of us to consider the roles of reconciliation, decolonization, and active allyship. I myself am grateful to join you from Portland, Oregon, the traditional territories of the people of Multnomah, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Molalla, and many of the other tribes who have made their homes along the Columbia River. We hope that you will share your thoughts and observations in Folk Unlocked in our chat box, and this panel will be available for viewing for the remainder of the conference once it's aired at its scheduled time. So the overall topic of our panel today is where we find ourselves as agents in a time of great disruption. And in our collective agenting business, not just in tours being canceled, but the reorganization of talent, the reorganization of agents, new agencies being formed. And it's hard to have perspective in the middle of all of it and keep track of who's where and what they're doing now. So if nothing more, let's shed some light on where we're at today and try to bring some light into the room. So as we go into our first topic, I want to go ahead and start introducing the four panelists that we have speaking today. Range of experiences of 20 to 30 years here. Some really great voices in the agenting industry and world. And I would like to introduce everybody and sort of touch base on how the pandemic has changed your job. Where are you working now? What has changed for you in the role of agenting? And so I'd love to start with Allie Hedrick, please, from Arrival Artists.
You're muted.
And I'm muted, sorry. Hi, my name is Allie Hedrick. I've been an agent for 25 years. I got my start at Billions back in the 90s, and I worked there for 21 years. And then for a year and a half, I moved over to Paradigm. And then once COVID hit, 1/3 of the staff got furloughed, and I was one of the agents that got furloughed. And after conferring with some of my other colleagues, decided to start my own agency, Arrival Artists, with 5 other partners. Started with, it was really kind of a hard decision, but the more I thought about it, it was nice to implement some changes and do things a little bit differently with Arrival. Yeah, here we go.
Thank you, Allie. And next, I'd love to introduce Amy Davidman, coming from TBA Agency.
Hi, I'm Amy Davidman. I've been doing this for a little over 20 years now. I got started at the Bowery Ballroom and went on to High Road Touring and the Windish Agency, Paradigm, and here I am at TBA. I too was part of the deconsolidation of the larger agency at Paradigm last year and got together with 4 other agents who I was at the Windish Agency with, and we launched in September. It's actually been a really exciting time through a very challenging global time, and it's been really nice to wake up every day and feel that silver lining. And feel positive and excited and ready to be flexible and open about how I can be here for my clients and my team and even all these lovely people on this panel. Thanks.
Thanks, Amy. And Frank Riley from High Road Touring. Hello.
Hi, Susie. Well, I've been sitting in this chair for about 20 years here at High Road Touring. We started in 2000. The biggest change for me with the pandemic was I accidentally landed in a slot of heading an organization called NITO, the National Independent Talent Organization. It absorbs all my time. We've lobbied successfully to Congress to enact a bill, which was called Save Our Stages, and it's now called Shuttered Venues Operators Grant. And with some luck and a lot more hard work, I think we can help a lot of independent venues stay in business and a lot of independent agencies too. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. And last but not least, Michael Morris, coming from Mint.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part of the panel. I have been an agent for close to 20 years as well. I got my start as a student promoter. I worked for Bill Grant Presents in the marketing department, and then started at a small agency called Rosebud in San Francisco about 20 years ago. And my journey has taken me now. I'm in Chicago. I was most recently also at Paradigm Talent Agency, and I was honored to be part of the furlough back in March, along with Amy and Allie. It's been a personal journey in trying to, figure out both the landscape and both my my personal moves. But ultimately, I've ended up I'm a founding agent at a new agency called Mint Talent Group that was started by agents CJ Strock, Phil Egenthal, and Patrick McCullough. And that has been really exciting and definitely a positive thing to work on during this time. So here we go. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for joining us. I mean, all of your voices are so important. We appreciate hearing the new landscape ahead. And for some of the folks here that have joined or have started your new agencies, it seems like with the furlough of Paradigm and some new ideas, I was just curious if anybody wanted to talk about, has the entrepreneurship of a new agency been in the back of your mind at some point, or have you all just sort of seen where the pandemic has impacted live touring and kind of where to go from there? Or if you want to talk about some of the partners or teammates that are involved in the new agency formations, that's great too. Just wanted to get a few thoughts and gather sort of where you're heading from here.
I'll jump in. I do think that a little bit the idea was in the back of my head and the others at TBA about, what an independent agency possibility could be. I think that the hardest part when you're a part of a bigger agency, everybody has contracts that don't necessarily line up in terms of timing. The idea of really getting together as a group just seemed harder. I mean, the reality is that when you're all kind of untethered at the same time, it becomes a lot easier to get together and kind of start anew and switch gears. So that did make it a lot easier to jump in and move forward and move on.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would say that I'm pretty surprised too by the weight that's been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't expecting that because it is a lot of work, to build the agency. But I feel such a sense of freedom that's really nice. It's like I don't need that added pressure of working for somebody else and having to you know, deliver high numbers and worried about your numbers and constantly worried about having a target on your back. So it feels, I feel freer, and I'm enjoying the job more now than I was before, which is kind of crazy to say that this during COVID when I'm making virtually no money.
Right. Right.
I've always wanted to have more of a role in the operations of an agency. I've worked for 3 agencies now. One was a small boutique, one was kind of a mid-sized independent, and one was a corporate conglomerate. And I can't say that, you know, I learned something from each of those experiences, but I can't say that I was ever totally pleased with different parts of the operation at any of those spots. So to kind of start fresh with other like-minded veteran agents is exciting and thrilling. And that's not to say I wasn't necessarily looking for that a year ago. I mean, I was a good worker. I was making, you know, my artists were happy. I was doing a good job, but this, at least for me personally, I think is going to be a much better situation than anything I've had before. And it's already happening, and I'm looking forward to that for the rest of my career.
Well, and that's great. I mean, I think one thing I can say about all 4 of you is when this moment happened, to see everybody take action, make moves, and like work collectively within your teams has been really impressive. Even Frank, you know, forming with the NIDA organization, which I definitely want to talk a little bit more about later in our panel. But seeing everyone come together and make sure that people are checking in, seeing where everyone's at, is everybody safe, what do folks need? It's almost like this post-storm analogy where I feel like everybody kind of got thrown around, and now we can all like check in with each other a little bit and make sure everybody's okay. Another obvious topic that I think we do need to talk about, just because of the past year that we've had with a lot of social justice and a lot of awareness with many of the movements, is there seems to be a great lack of BIPOC individuals as an industry, as agent teammates, and with some of you that have had long established agencies and some that are as new leaders and new formations, like how do you see being able to collectively get some more of those voices and teammates onto your teams?
I'll speak to that for a moment. We're actually considering how to open up the promoter world and how to develop new artists from international locations, and finding promoters and audiences who would be part of the development. So it's an idea of developing a promoter system, a different audience, and new artists from places outside of America. What's happened here is, with the pandemic raging and a lot of people let go, there's going to be a lot of spaces that will be opened up in ways that haven't been true for the last 20 years, at least 20 years, maybe a lot longer than that. But I think it's a process, and I think it needs to be thought of, I hate using this word, but holistically. So I think you need to start with artists and audiences, and then think about how new promoters could become involved in ways that we haven't considered previously, and to start breaking down the barriers that have been put up over the last 20, 30, 40 years. When I started in the early 80s, the agency world was dominated by 2 or 3 agencies, and promoters were little fiefdoms in territories and regions. Over the course of many years, it consolidated in ways that put up unnecessary barriers to all sorts of ways, all sorts of entry points to the live music community, and some of those are being ripped down right now. And you're seeing some of the effect of this with the new agencies that have been developed by the 3 other people on the panel here. Thank you.
I wanted to chime in here because I do feel like one of Something that's been very apparent to me just over this last year is my privilege to be able to start an agency, and also to be able to start it with people who I've worked with before, who are my friends. And that includes everybody in the agency, not only the partners, but all of the employees. And so that's created an all-white agency, right? And I think that it's really important to be transparent about talking about what needs to happen next. And for me, I've felt very aware of potential previous silence, at least as a white woman, and now in a position of leadership, I really want to make sure that that silence is broken down, even if I'm not necessarily saying the right thing at the right moment, and maybe not even doing the right thing at the right moment. So that I've taken that really as a weight to carry and a responsibility to deal with, and a conversation to keep having within the industry. I really want to make sure that there are doors opening for folks who have not had those opportunities available to them, especially in the agency world. And it takes a while. I mean, really, it's actually hard that it feels like I think about it every day, and I want the change to happen really quickly. So over at TBA, we did, we are collaborating with Diversify the Stage, and we're going to be working with their internship program and their mentorship program if they need us. And so hopefully we'll have a couple of interns this spring from their program. That's been really great. And then I think really just trying to have as many, honestly, just really trying to have as many conversations as possible, make sure that, it doesn't feel like there is this silence, that we can't talk about it. And that I do think that even talking about it with my white colleagues, for me, is a really important action forward. And that I hope that there's a lot more that can be shifted and celebrated when we get to 1 year, and then when we get to 2 years, and really trying to think about it as just, this is our future. This is the future. It's really important for our business.
Yeah, Amy and I have had a conversation already about that. So I'm getting an echo. Is that better? Yeah, it is difficult. It's difficult to figure out the right people to hire, and it would be really easy for us to just go and hire the people that we've worked with before to fill support roles. But Arrival's trying to make sure that we interview lots of different candidates and that we train people, and so we can have a more diverse company.
Yeah, I think about it a lot, because I think probably like all of us on the panel, a lot of my clients are African American or Latin, and so it is important, and it is sometimes feels difficult when you're thinking about a hiring pool. But I don't know what else to do at the moment other than to expand who we interview and who we talk to, and who we approach about internships. And we're doing that right now at Mint in terms of spring internships, and kind of trying to identify more of a diverse pool of schools. And I live in Chicago, which is one of the most diverse cities in the country. So there should be more diversity. And I do think it starts with having conversations like this and starting up new companies like this and just making it a priority. And I would like to, see how the promoter pool can expand as well for more minority diverse promoters. Those are harder questions, but I think it's important that the industry and that the people, on this panel and others identify it and make it a priority. And that's, I think, a start.
Yeah, I feel like, all of you make such really good points. I think as a POC individual myself, and in the last 15, years of booking and hustling, this is the most real and honest time that we're all as an industry having these conversations. And I'm encouraged by it quite a bit that the space is created and welcome to talk about it. I think we all know that the conversation sometimes is that we mix our own concrete, we build our own streets, and we have the ability and accessibility to get at things like that at some point in our lives and do the internships and work for free. But it is a lot of the conversation these days of like, how do we find more accessible ways that we can support people who don't have that ability. And I just want to say thank you all for continuing to fight for that and encouraging those conversations within your own team and the promoters. I think like we're all sort of learning together. Something Amy said, like welcoming those conversations and not needing to have all the answers, but learning collectively is super important. And I'm learning still all the time as well. So well, thank you, and thanks for talking about that a bit. We do want to move on to topic number 2, which is kind of getting into more of the nuts and bolts of the booking and how our agent roles are changing. I did want to start a bit with live streams, just because I feel as the pandemic hit, I'm sure we all were getting slammed with what that means. And if you all have thoughts or ideas of, will live streaming change touring and live touring in general? Will we foresee more of the live stream existing past the pandemic reopening moment? Do you see trends that you're open to sharing with the artist community and promoter community here? Or what you're observing? Are you seeing new deals come out? How are we going to pick out of all of the platforms that continue to open as this time continues on? So I would love to get some opinions on any of those topics or any overall thoughts on some of that stuff.
I only have a few comments, so everybody else will jump in on top. When the pandemic started and the streaming began, most of it was really embarrassing. It was like, somebody in their living room with a dog wandering around, and the technology was very crude, and the implementation was really horrendous. I've fought it really hard, honestly. For the first few months, I never wanted to look at another live stream again. But what happened is that, people met the challenge. Technology improved substantially. People began to get a handle on what looked good and what sounded good. And people started to be able to do things that represented them well as artists in a good way. Not always perfect, but, in a good way. Not every live show is perfect either. So it's part of it. I do believe that streaming will become an adjunct to touring in the future. So if you have a showcase at the Bowery Ballroom to announce and publicize and promote a new recording, maybe you can spread that around the country a little bit and have your diehard fans get a chance to glimpse that show also. In terms of any kind of substantive pattern of development that live streaming takes over live performances, I don't think so. It's an adjunct, it's useful, it's a promotional tool. It does generate some money on occasion, but I think it's going to be mostly the former than the latter. That's my little perspective.
Do any of you see that the streaming revenue is going to impact the offer on an artist deal at all in any venues?
I don't significantly. I mean, I think it could be an add-on, like Frank was kind of hitting at. If you have a special show, a celebration, a special release, where it's more than just Saturday night in New Orleans or whatever. I think that you can definitely add something and add revenue to that. But I don't see it replacing live deals or changing them dramatically. And I do believe that there are some venues who have already started up who will have that streaming platform ability in-house and basically be able to add a streaming ticket to a deal. And that might work for some artists who will engage in that and some who won't. But I don't think it's going to change the artist's world or their touring or anything like that. Just a value add-on thing is how I see it.
I think some jam bands will lead the way as well, because they're kind of, their fans might go to multiple shows. And also, who knows, maybe promoters will offer guarantees. I think if they start to throw some money at it, you know, more artists are going to say yes to it. You know, that'll help move it along, is what I think. I mean, right now there's always been certain venues that have done it, but it's just never quite seemed worth it. And sometimes even their deals are like, after we pay our our 2 camera guys to film it, then we'll give you a cut. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, we can actually do this whole thing and make nothing, you know. So I think maybe once that more venues have it consistently and we can get the expenses right, and maybe promoters offer something to some of the bands, that it'll be more thing.
Yeah. Allie, you cut out just in the beginning of that too. Were you saying that you felt like maybe the jam band community might be more leading the way of that? Okay. That's what I thought I heard you say. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah, I was going to also add to that, because I think that the streaming success has been more about the artist's willingness to market it and push it themselves. I mean, the tickets that have come from marketing through promoters or performing arts centers, let's say, have been fine. But the majority of the tickets are being sold through artist fan direct contact. So I think also it's really going to be, the payoff and the benefit of that is going to be how interested are artists in it, and then how are they going to be marketing it and pushing it to their fans. And if they're going out on tour and every single show is going to be streamed, I can see, yeah, sure, a jam band fan might be like, oh my gosh, I get to get like 15 of these. But a lot of other artists, fans are going to be like, that total overkill. So there will have to be some sense of, what are you marketing? What are you pushing? Is it because it's a special venue? Is it because there's like something specific that's happening with that? So I think that's going to also have to be really looked at. And I think artists are going to be very specific about how they want to paint that picture for their fans, so it doesn't just look like a mess, really.
Right. I think that I agree with all of you. And I think that the evolution of streaming is going to continue on. And, we're not even talking yet about these ticketed, the national or international live streams that our artists are doing individually. I feel, one quick question is, would you ever use a stream to maybe determine or evaluate what an artist is worth on the road? Like, can we take those numbers and equate them to those type of ticket pulls and venues, or do they have no relation to each other? Is it just, how do you all see is there any correlation between how an artist might pull on the road versus on a stream?
I don't know. I don't think so. I just don't think it's an equal thing. I mean, I do think that it's really helpful. Like, I had an artist do holiday shows, holiday focused and New Year's Eve focused. And of course, these are global, right? So you see, it's 70, there are tickets from 77 countries. And that was really cool to see all of that. And it did show, I guess, in a sense, like, oh, who might be interested in one of these holiday shows in some other area in the world, because they typically only do holiday shows in a certain area. But I still don't know that that's going to change the plan of like on the ground touring.
Right.
I think that's an exact correlation.
Yeah, I guess, well, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Frank.
No problem. It's actually been interesting to see who succeeded with the streaming shows and who has not. But I think it's there's so many different variables. It has to do with the audience engagement with the artist directly through their website or socials. It has something to do with the age of the audience and the access to the internet. It has something to do with, how high the profile is of the artist at any one moment. So it's like a lot like touring in ways. So there are times when it's very strong and there's times when you shouldn't be doing it. But
yeah,
that's my little.
I certainly have had a lot of managers complain that how much work during a live stream is, and the payout has quite been worth it for the amount of work that they've done. I've had other managers that are fine with it, but I certainly have had a few that are like, that was a month's worth of work for one show, as opposed to like a whole tour.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see where the data and more stuff comes out of that for all of us, and how to utilize that. I wanted to move on to sort of the next topic here, which was within this sort of sphere, which is like, how are we seeing offers and deals change? Are you all getting offers? I'm sure there's trends here, but we're also speaking to the artist community of Folk Alliance as well. And I'm curious, well, let's first talk about, our offers changing? Are you seeing the deals move around? Are we seeing back ends? Are we seeing more costs on expenses, etc.?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just going to say, from my perspective so far, I mean, I think it also, again, depends on the artist. If you're an established artist, at least in my experience, those offers so far haven't changed much. If you are an artist who was kind of more of a risk, it's definitely seems to be more conservative. And if you're a new artist, like most times, you're gonna have to prove yourself. In terms of expenses, additional expenses, I'm seeing a little on the COVID cleanup, COVID education. Nothing that is dramatically changing show expenses, but they're there. I have had a couple of situations, and I'm not sure if you all have had this, where people have tried to add essentially an additional facility fee, which they call a COVID fee, which I have totally pushed back on, because from my perspective, everyone's hurting, everyone's suffering. And so if we're going to create new revenue by just tacking on $3 or $5 to a ticket price and calling it a COVID relief or COVID recovery, the artists should also share in that. And most people have understood that and taken it out. But I guess we'll see where that goes as an industry. That's been my experience so far.
Some of the AEG and Live Nation have lowered some of their offers. And I found that the independent promoters have not, which is kind of nice. I think some of the independents will do quite well and maybe get some shows that they wouldn't have.
Definitely.
Susie, NIDO was formed in part because I was frightened that the large corporate promoters would try to impose their will and take advantage of the opportunity to change the way deals were structured and the relationship, in a weird way, of promoters and agents. And I've seen lots of evidence of that, although what's happened over the last few months is it's become clear that the damages cuts all ways. It cuts to the largest corporate promoters, to the smallest independents, to the large corporate agencies, to the small independent agencies too. So I think what's going on here now is we're all trying to respond in a reasonable way, in a cooperative way, that allows everybody to have some semblance of recovery once we get through this. There will be people that will try to take advantage, as always, but with a collective response and, you know, our faith in the artists that we represent, I think we can make our way through this in a positive way.
So I feel, yeah, definitely. I think all those trends are popping up in my world and life as well. And I think that, you know, I think that that led me to sort of ask the question of artist development. And when we have new artists that might have not necessarily have, you know, many years of touring under their belt, they're still trying to understand where they're at in the touring world. Like, you know, going back to what Michael said, like having, you know, established artists, we know what they're going to do in Chicago. We know what ticket price we can push. We know maybe the fans that will not, you know, that will come back to see them. But how do we approach artist development when it does take a certain amount of revenue to get a team on the road to take on national tours? Will we see that investment from promoters to want to still create these different careers, or how do we invest in those type of artists that we believe need to be amplified, need to be on stages? How are you all seeing that approach now?
It's what I worried about the most, is that the voices of new artists and new perspectives have been silenced this last year, and apparently for the year coming. We're going to have a group of lost artists is what's going to happen. And that's going to be terrible. But I think we can, you know, pick things back up and resume our normal course of action. We're going to have to be clever. We're going to have to do some more packaging where in places where we didn't do it for a while. We're going to have to be more cooperative with each other. We're going to have to look at opportunities that are appropriate for an artist, even if we don't represent them. You know, what we need to do as independent agents is represent artists in the way that they want to be represented. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we continue to develop new voices, new perspectives, new music, new communities. That's what to me, that's what independence means. It's responsibility. You know, the large corporate companies, they don't give a shit what happens with small artists. They only care what kind of money they can get. That's the danger there. That's why it's so important that the independent community take care of itself, recognize each other as not their adversaries, but as their brothers and sisters in arms. And that's the way forward here. That's the only way that new artists will get a real chance to get started again once this thing moves down the road.
Yeah, I was going to chime in and just say that I feel like right now what we can be doing, since touring isn't really happening, is just to continue to share with each other what artists we're finding, what they sound like, what they're doing. You know, I was doing this before, but I've really embraced like pulling in different people who I feel like are tastemakers and making sure that I'm sending out press clippings or new songs or whatever's going on in that realm. And just even with the agency, we started a quarterly kind of insider lookbook, you know, thing to send around to people within the industry. I think that that kind of collaboration and viewing all of us as a collective is going to be really helpful in terms of educating each other on who are the rising voices, what are they doing, and then yes, hopefully, as Frank is talking about, packaging, getting these folks out on the road. But there are artists that are emerging. They're still making music. We have to keep sharing that with each other so that those folks have a platform.
Yeah, and I would just say to any artists who are watching this panel right now, you know, it's on you too. You got to be great. I mean, there was already too much clutter to begin with, far too much clutter, and there's going to be more of it when we come out of this. But you know, I believe talent wins, and but consider that motivation.
That's great. That's great. Thank you all. So moving into our last topic, we just want to take a step back and think about the full overall ecosystem of every market, but the live touring business in general. And I think that in the last year, you know, I think a lot of that work was within the advocacy. A lot of that work was within NITO. And Frank, I would love for you to dig in a little bit about, you know, what you think the collective will become past the reopening moment, but also if you could visit a little bit about what sort of funding and what sort of things have gone through via the last COVID relief package, and what industry professionals can look towards for funding at the moment.
You know, NITO, there's a story, we don't need to go into it right here, but, you know, NITO was founded by accident. It was a response to this overwhelming crisis that nobody had any real answers for. I didn't think about the future whatsoever when NITO was formed. I thought about disseminating information to independent agents in a way that they could utilize and have some insight into what I really feared would be the attempt to crush the independents and put them back, you know, off the table. But now I see I do see a future for NITO. I do see a future for some of these organizations that have formed. You know, we can speak on behalf of artists, on behalf of independent agents, on behalf of independent venues, because we are the lifeblood. We are the place where things begin. We are the place where artists develop their careers and become voices, and, you know, end up in the larger world, you know, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Again, it's our responsibility. In terms of legislation, there is a bill that was signed. It's a miracle. We were told over and over again that nothing would be carved out for a specific industry. And yet, John Cornyn, Amy Klobuchar wrote a bill called Save Our Stages. It got an enormous amount of backing in Congress, in the Senate, and in the House. And a miracle of miracles, the ex-president signed it on December 28th. The danger now is how it's implemented and who actually benefits from the bill. The bill has been broadened to include a lot of other shuttered industries, including museums and independent restaurants, and independent theaters, other organizations. And there's only so much money in the pool that can be drawn out. There is a provision that says that it can be replenished, but nobody knows how that'll be implemented. People that are eligible have a real shot at getting some money that will allow their companies, their venues, their organizations, their agencies, whatever, to get some funding to survive through some part of 2021. There are other provisions in the bill that were helpful to artists. There's the Extend PUA, which is unemployment assistance from the federal level. There's PPP that can be drawn down on behalf of other organizations and artists too. So there's a bunch of legislation out there that should cover the majority of people that have been, most shuttered and most damaged from the pandemic. But what we're doing here is we represent viable, vital businesses for communities. We're not looking for a handout. None of us are, or we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have our jobs right now. So what we really need is the implementation of the vaccine, as many inoculations as possible, as quickly as possible, and allow us to get back to our jobs, to open doors safely, to make sure audiences are safe, to make sure communities are safe, make sure artists are safe, and get back to work. That's the future, and that's what I think we're all looking for at this point.
In the short term, do you feel like there's more funding that is coming down the road? Other sort of bills and proposals that are being talked about?
There's a 1.9 trillion. No, did I say trillion? Yeah, $1.9 trillion package in Congress right now that will be voted on, that does include additional provisions, including the possibility of replenishing the SVOG, Save Our Stages grant. So there is more money there. There's included in that $1.9 trillion is an extension of the pandemic unemployment assistance provisions too, which means extending the federal funding for unemployment. There'll be additional PPP funds that'll be available there too. So yes, there's more money in the pipeline for the future, but it has to make its way through Congress. And for somebody that sat tortuously through August, September, October, November, and December, told repeatedly by representatives in Congress that something would change, it took months and months and months of advocacy to get that thing through. And then finally, a very recalcitrant president signing the bill and getting it through Congress. So I hope it's imminent. I don't count on it being imminent, but I believe it's out there. And with the change in Congress, I think it's possible.
Now, once we see the doors open, I mean, do you all sort of feel like the vaccine is the ultimate answer, or are you all considering a lot more of these socially distanced shows? Are your artists considering that, or?
Well, both. Some of my artists will be playing spring, summer, outdoor, socially distanced pods, drive-ins, that sort of thing. Some of my smaller artists are definitely open to indoor socially distanced type situations. But yeah, ultimately, to get back to mass gatherings, I don't see the quickest way is through the vaccine. I will say in my little world, the vaccine rollout is going very well. My wife has been vaccinated. She's a medical social worker. Several of my clients, some of them are older, have been vaccinated. My dad has been vaccinated. So my immediate rollout is going very well. It's just the rest of the world that has to catch up. So
yeah. And once the doors do open, what are we all expecting? Are we seeing like a slow? I mean, from some of the promoters that I talked to, they seem like any sort of social distance show is doing pretty well. But how do you see things? Do we see fans coming out in droves? Do we see people being hesitant? Is it all dependent on the artists? Are you eager to book to full capacity? Any of those things you want to add? I mean, do we see like business coming back strong, I guess?
People want to go to shows. Yeah, people, I mean, when it can happen, people will be buying tickets. And there obviously are people who are buying tickets to socially distanced shows and drive-ins. I think depending on the demographic really is kind of showing us how popular it is with, depending on the fans, or, how risky they're willing to go with it. But yeah, vaccinations and making sure that venues are set up with proper airflow and filters, and that there's some real plans in place just to make sure that everybody's safe. It's different state by state, venue by venue, and even artist by artist, like what their level of comfort is in terms of getting back to seeing things, at full capacity. But no, I don't have one artist who's asking for any sort of full capacity anytime soon. I mean, obviously we're booking shows in, at the end of 21 and into 22 as if it's normal, back to normal.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to do it any differently. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot has to happen for people to feel comfortable to go do that. And, in my personal sphere, vaccinations are not going well. I mean, everybody around me is trying desperately to get a vaccination. And, my sister, who's kind of in the medical sphere a little bit on the edges, has gotten it. So I think it's a total mess. I'm just very hopeful that over the next couple of months, there seems to be a little bit more of a rollout system that we can all depend on throughout the summer. And that's when it needs to be full force through the summer for all of us to get vaccinated.
I feel once things do start up, I think, people are going to come out in droves. But I think the problem is it's going to be, 3 years of touring crunched into 1 year, and there will definitely be some losers. But I do think people are so desperate to see live music that if they were on the fence before about going to a show, that they're gonna go.
Right.
So I feel pretty optimistic about that.
There is the issue of the economy, and what that, how that affects people. There's a limited amount of money that can be used for entertainment. And after that initial blush with everybody touring, the competition will be fierce. And Allie's right. There'll be some things that don't do well, a lot of things that don't do well. Just one comment on socially distanced and smaller smaller capacities, reduced capacity venues. Our business is based on margins. And when you shrink the margins, touring becomes unaffordable. It'll start by regions because that's more affordable. But touring across the country, I'm starting to, I'm not going to give it up all the way, but I'm starting to realize that 2021 is not a very likely time for full-on national touring. I think there'll be plenty of regional touring. So as the Southeast continues to open up and lead the way in both deaths and, I guess, bravery, I don't know how you put it, but I think there'll be a lot of regional touring in the Southeast. I think there'll be other areas where it'll open up, and I think there'll be areas where it's a lot more cautious. But sooner is better, that's for sure, but only with safety in mind.
Yeah. And I will say too that none of us know for sure yet. I mean, I agree that once things start to open up, there'll be a ton of goodwill and people will want to get back and gather, not just for shows, but at restaurants or sporting events or whatever they do. I am a little concerned too about the economy. I don't think 10 million people just go back to work when the vaccine is, put back in place. I'm a little concerned for my older audiences, even if they, have been fully vaccinated, what is their capacity or to go, sit 2 hours indoors. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a feeling out process as opposed to just, hey, we can go back to shows. I hope I'm wrong, but I think there'll be a correction in the next year and a half.
Yeah. Well, I think that, as agents and working with our promoter partners and then our managers is just trying to collectively come up with what is responsible for the ecosystems, for all the markets, for how we approach our teams and make sure that things are safe and affordable for our artists as well. So I do think it will be more prevalent in a lot of our conversations. Like, I don't know if I want to hear the promoters tell me they're going to flip the room 3 times because there's enough shows to do that with or enough tours. It kind of freaks me out. So, but at the same time, I understand they're trying to get as much in and done as possible. We'll all have to kind of draw the line and have those honest conversations. So just wanted to add, maybe if you have 1 or 2 COVID hobbies that have popped up in your lives, things that have pulled you in. If you have any final thoughts with that, we'd love to know a little bit of what you guys are spending your time on, other than rebooking dates.
Parenting.
Puppy.
Coffee, was that Michael?
Puppy. We have a 1-year-old that we got in April, and now I go to the dog park 2 or 3 times a day. Very zen to watch your dog run around in the cold.
I got to say that, without not having to go out to shows all the time and not going out at night at all, I've spent a lot of time rediscovering old loves of music, and I've been digging deep in my past, and it's been actually eye-opening. And I've actually paid attention to, the lyrics and songs of new stuff that's coming through in ways that I hadn't done in a long time. And it's been that's been a happy discovery or rediscovery for sure. Come on, Allie, what do you got?
A lot of cooking, lasagnas and baking. I refinished some furniture. Every single drawer in my house has been organized. My closet, my garage, everything is. I hung curtains. I mean, the projects are never ending. I think I might even paint my house myself, which is insane. As soon as the brain stops, I'm making plans for that, at least like a section of it. So
come to my house.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't sit idle. So I certainly, yeah.
You can all come over to my house, and I'd be happy to make you dinner. I got a lot of practice the last year or so, that's for sure.
Yeah. A lot of cooking.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. No, I feel like we're all like organizers. So I've been doing massive organization as well. And then just like trying to learn every dish my mother has made. So doing a lot of FaceTime as she talks me through it. But I'm glad you all are healthy and doing the best you can out there and hanging in there. And just want to thank you all again, Michael, Allie, Amy, Frank, for joining, sharing your thoughts, sharing your expertise, staying connected in the community with us. We really, really appreciate it. I just want to say thank you all for coming and attending the panel. The session will continue to be available as a recording on Folk Unlocked all week long. Please take a moment to provide any feedback about today's conversation by posting comments in the chat. And just a few topics to review real quickly that, popped out to me was, taking care of each other, checking in, making sure everybody's safe and okay. The entrepreneurship that continues to lead us forward, the advocacy that continues to lead us forward, the awareness and the hard conversations around BIPOC issues and race, and an accountability that we all have to continue fighting for that conversation and understanding collectively together, and how we will continue to evolve artist development and give us some space to create new careers and new voices out there as independents. And finally, Folk Unlocked is made available as well as a pay what you can price point. Thanks to the generosity of our donors at Folk Alliance. And if you'd like to support the work, donations can be made at folk.org/donate. Stay safe and connected out there, and see you soon. Thank you.